Hey, so while recording another video I was thinking about the one thing that always gets neglected by so many beginner filmmakers on YouTube. It's not so much about the camera, but how to use the lighting and how to achieve a great look with it. Well, it is time to enhance your videos with this upcoming 3 simple lighting solutions, and we are only going to use one light. The first lighting setup is really simple and probably the most obvious one. It's a front heavy, one light and one soft dome key light scenario, mostly done for interviews, talking head scenarios, or in this case YouTube. What kind of light you are using is actually not that important. Everything from a 60 watt and upwards is fine for this kind of setup, as long as this is indoor. The setup works best when used fairly close to the subject as well as fairly close to a dark wall at the same time. I'm recreating this right before our steelbook wall so that you can see the difference between this shot and my regular studio setup. Let's start breaking down this first simple light setup. I'm using my 220 watt light because it was just standing around there as my main key light, which is slightly angled down towards my face, coming not directly from the front but rather from the side. This achieves much more tonal contrast on my face and makes the image pop even more. The common rule is angling your light in 45 degrees to your subject to get the best results, and I really think this works. If you don't own a softbox or a dome to put onto your light, you can also use some kind of muslin, and from now on muslin and scrims in this video are interchangeable terms depending on what you have at home. Why? Yeah, well, I don't have any muslin, but I do have some silk scrim instead. It's the same principle as with the muslin, just clamp it onto a C-stand and put it in front of your light with a bit of space between. This gives you a nice soft light on your subject. This works very well with textured backgrounds, and most often you don't need much more than one light to achieve a good look and result. But hey, let's not stop there. To further enhance the setup, you can always bring in 1 or 2 practicals into the background to give even more focus onto the background, and therefore making the subject pop even a bit more. If you can, try to point the practicals either directly away from the camera so that they don't reflect too much light into the sensor, or try shooting them directly at your subject to light up the shoulder and backside of the head, just like in my shot right here, to separate me even more from the background. Setup tip number 2 is actually even more simple than the first one. You don't need any light at all, just use natural light as your key light. Light coming from the outside, go sit on your balcony and talk to your camera, or, well, use a window that you actually hopefully have in your apartment or house as a natural source of light. I guess everyone has a window. It's great, and most often it's free as well. But there is one negative to this solution: the light coming from the sun above changes throughout the day, and so controlling the source is vital in getting a great light setup and in the end a beautiful look into your video. This can be easily achieved with a muslin, as said before, that you need to hang before the window, and in my case I'm using the same silk scrim as before. Setting this up close to the window and then angling out the subject away from it gives a nice, soft, natural light with pleasing skin tones. To enhance this even further, you can now bring in a black scrim, so the opposite of a silk scrim that blocks out lighting and enhances contrast. As a small tip, always place the black scrim on the same side as your camera is actually positioned and shooting into, to let it shoot into the darker side. This is done by 95% of all movies out there and enhances the movie feeling of a scene dramatically. Also, if you have everything mentioned before, feel free to bring in the additional lights you have as a fill light that you used before as a key light to give your subject a nice glow from behind or above the shoulder. I love to do what is called the half and half sandwich in the grip world, which is half soft light and half hard light. This gives another nice contrast on the subject, not only dark and light, but also soft and hard, and makes the image even more interesting. So let's actually move on to tip number 3. Enhancing your lighting setup with more of the lighting setup thingies you actually have at home. I'm not sure if you ever heard of the following term. It's called planning in advance. This greatly helps in achieving mostly a better outcome in the future, and it reduces a lot of stress. This also helps when setting up lights before a shoot. Think about what you can do with your lighting gear that you have available. So you have a key light and maybe even a second light and some practicals that are standing in your room. Perfect, that's actually all you need to get some great looking image in the end. Setting up the same lighting setup as before, let's think about adding a motivated light into this setup as well. The practical background light is warm, shining at 5600 Kelvin. Great, let's add a side light to your scene, which also shines at 5600 Kelvin, but this one is really lighting your subject this time, while the practical is just there for meh in the background. To the viewer of your video, it seems to be that the light is coming from the practice in the background, and therefore he is assuming that this is a great natural light source. But you do know better than that. This is one of the things movies does so well. They tell you it's all, well, practical lights everywhere, while simultaneously having 1200K lights on set shining in a million different directions all at once. My final tip is go out there and practice setting up lights. In my opinion, this is so much more important than having, well, another lens or having a better camera and so on. Yeah, gear matters as long as it's the right gear for the right person, the right knowledge for the right project. As always, my name is Leech and I'm off writing next scripts. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to subscribe to this channel. There are plenty more of this type of content and many more things available and also coming in the future. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day. See you around and goodbye.